Hello, everyone, and welcome to a YouTube exclusive, the Not Content Podcast, as part of the From the Q Podcasting Network. My name is Jerome Q-san. On this YouTube exclusive, we are going to be doing a Sabu mixtape, a little bit of everything as we discuss the life and times of one of the most notable professional wrestlers of all time. I mean, I know that the word legend and icon gets thrown around quite a bit, and I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far with Sabu, but Sabu is certainly somebody that is worth talking about. He is also incredibly underrated in terms of his influence. And look, his passing is incredibly unfortunate. But I am really, really hopeful that his passing allows him to get into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. Because on influence alone, he 100% should be in. And we're going to talk a little bit about why here tonight as we discuss four of his better matches, I would say, four of his, matches that I think are worth going out of your way to see, in my view, even if they're not, four-star classics. We are going to be discussing a match that he had in 1993 on the independent wrestling circuit, so to speak, with the Lightning Kid, who would very soon, literally just a month later, would defeat Razor Ramon on Monday Night Raw to essentially make that television program. And then we are going to be discussing his match with Too Cold Scorpio from SummerSlam 1996, which was for the ECW television title. Then we are going to discuss Sabu and Abyss from Turning Point 2005, a barbed wire match, not his most famous barbed wire match, but one that I feel much more comfortable reviewing than Born to be Wired. And of course, we are going to be discussing Sabu, fittingly enough, in John Cena's retirement year. We will be discussing John Cena and Sabu. It really did happen. It actually happened twice. It happened prior to this as well, but we are going to be talking about their match from Vengeance 2006. What a relic that match is, and we'll be talking about it. My co-host, of course, is Brian. As always, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. With this being YouTube exclusive, make sure you are subscribing. Click the bell icon for notifications. Brian, we are not reviewing Sabu's last match, and I will never, ever watch that match for a number of different reasons. But you are somebody who is a huge Sabu mark. You have the distinct displeasure of having seen Sabu's last match, and I mean, I don't know. It's he has left quite a legacy, and we definitely wanted to do this mixtape.
Yeah, so according to my calculations, I've seen Sabu wrestle live 4 times. First time was XPW in January of 2002. That was a fun match against the Messiah before the Messiah lost one of his fingers, if you want to look that XPW story up, folks. But that's when Sabu was on the outs with Paul Heyman. And that was like late 2000, early 2001, where he went in that transition to the XPW promotion. Saw him on my local TV, and I was like, oh shit, they got Sabu. And then I realized, like, on ECW, an hour later, in the same block or whatever, channel block on Saturday nights, he's not there anymore. So I was like, oh shit. So that was a big deal for me as a kid. I was like seeing Sabu go from literally like the East Coast to the West Coast, and I didn't realize it was like that kind of a thing back then. But man, seeing Sabu become like a local guy in the West Coast for about 2 year period was pretty cool for a little bit of time. Like he drew a lot, I would say. Like considering that XPW was like a young promotion, and that main event in January 2002 that I went to drew like I want to say 2,000 people in a high school gym, and both sides were filled up and everything. Like even the front row that they added, it was like 2,000 people. It was like legit, and I was kind of shocked as a kid to see this many people outside of a WWE kind of show at the time. So the draw is real with Sabu, I think, in terms of like the independent buzz. Like if he does an indie show, it's definitely going to increase your attendance kind of thing. And I think that he really was that kind of an indie draw. And it dates back to the 90s where we're going to start out with Lightning Kid. But the other times I saw him was against the Hardys when he teamed up with RVD. That was one of those convention shows. That was one of those shows where it was getting a little too late at night, and it was the last match on the show, and you can tell that they've been smoking all night because it's the Hardys and Rob Van Dam and Sabu. And of course, I saw him at GCW, one of those 2020 shows, those COVID shows that was socially distant, but it was all outdoors. And then I saw him, of course, at George and Ellis Spring Break. It's unfortunate, man, but I don't know. From what I'm hearing and all the post stuff from Rob Van Dam, what he's saying. It's kind of like Sabu went out on his own terms, and I guess you can't argue against that. So it's like the dude lived his own life, so to speak, and he enjoyed it. And if you look at his shoot interviews online, it's like he rarely badmouths people. He like puts a lot of people over, and he doesn't really like get over the top angry. He just kind of has that singular tone, and maybe because he's a pothead, but I kind of get that notion. But for me, man, Sabu was just a really good dude. You know what I mean? And that's the vibe that I get from all these shoot interviews that talk about him too.
All right, let's talk about the match with the Lightning Kid, which sadly does not have a finish. I don't know if they didn't do one because of how notable both men were. Lightning Kid's time in the WWF was either starting or had already started because the match with Razor Ramon was not his first WWF match. But this was just a really good kind of snapshot of what these two men could do. I would argue maybe even before their prime. I don't know if you would consider this maybe Sabu's prime and Lightning Kid's kind of early career. Lightning Kid had the very notable matches in the Global Wrestling Federation with Jerry Lane about a year or so prior. That is kind of what got him famous. And every time I see, especially Lightning Kid or 1-2-3 Kid at this stage, I can't help but think, what if Razor Ramon does not take a liking to him? What does his career look like? And does he end up in the same position as Sabu? Does he end up with some of the numerous drug problems that he had? It is both sad, but it is also a great what if. In terms of this match, Sabu is playing the heel. Oliver Humperdinck is the manager. I have never been a fan of his. And it was just like, I really enjoyed the match. And then the ending happened. I was like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. We really didn't get a proper payoff. And that was super unfortunate. But these two guys, they really hit their stuff. This definitely felt like it could have been something special. Lightning Kid bled, which I don't know. Like, it's very rare that Sean Waltman bladed. I know Backlash 2000, that definitely came to mind. I don't know the other times that he's actually bled, but this is pretty noticeable and it's kind of gnarly. And again, it's unfortunate that they really couldn't go to a finish here because this had the makings of something really special because of how, like, you could just see, like, being 30 years ago, how much more limber they were, how clean they hit everything. And, Sabu has a reputation for botching, maybe botching on purpose, maybe not botching on purpose. But, like, in all the matches that we are going to be talking about today, he was very clean in all four of them, and this was no exception. This may have been his cleanest match, but I don't know. To me, Sabu's strengths always were when he was wrestling from behind and almost wrestling from a space of desperation. And because he's a heel here, I don't think we get that.
No, but I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to play up the old Sheik kind of gimmick because this
Yes,
particular event takes place in Michigan, from what I understood on the title card, and this was like a special thing for the NWA because the NWA rarely went to Michigan at the time, and I guess it was like a special thing for the Sheik or something, and I'm guessing the Sheik had something to do with getting the booking. Um, but I think what they were trying to do is do the whole like we're going to do the whole Brody kind of finish or like the Stan Hansen kind of finish where it's like we're gonna have a DQ at the end, but we're gonna have this brawl at the end that kind of confuses the fans as to whether or not this is real or not because that's the vibe I was getting and the finish what they were trying to do. Basically, it's a DQ finish with interference. Waltman is trying to get back at Sabu. Sabu's trying to get at him, but Oliver Humperdinck is holding him back. And, Sabu is trying to play it like he's crazy and he's all over the arena. And Jerry Lynn has to come out and prevent Waltman from doing anything they doesn't want to do, kind of thing. He's holding him back. So they try to do this realistic kind of like all Japan kind of finish for an indie show, and that's the vibe that I was getting from it. So in terms of that, what they were trying to do, it was okay for me because I figured like if anything, maybe Waltman already had the WWF contract at this time because I mean logically he had to have been in their eyesight. I mean if he's gonna debut a month later, I can't even remember he's on TV at
he
this
did
point doing
not.
jobs.
He was. I believe that he had either filmed or was about to film them because again, like the idea
Yeah,
was that he was losing week after week and changing his name. And when he wrestled
so he
Razor, he
needed at
was just
least
a
a
kid.
couple tapings before that to get that losing streak
Probably,
going.
presumably, superstars are
So
wrestling
maybe he
down.
already had taped some stuff and he couldn't do a finish clean or something. That's my guess. But the
I
other
mean,
thing
that's
that kind of
certainly
stood out
possible.
The other thing that stood out is that this is not a no DQ match. It's a regular rules match, and Sabu working a regular match was kind of like a shocking thing to see, to be honest, because I'm so used to the chair stuff, obviously, and the table stuff, but this didn't have that. The bleeding, obviously, was not even like a chair shot. It was like Oliver Humperdinck taking 1, 2, 3 kid and slamming his head on the thing. So I'm guessing it's a veteran blade job where the veteran takes the young kid and I'll cut your kid, but I'll make it look good and safe, and it ended up gushing all over the place. But if anything, it turned out to be a great visual because that's one of the more striking visuals you'll see of Sean Waltman in his career because he hardly ever bled, and then he cuts a promo afterward bleeding. So that really kind of
I mean, and
elevates
he looks like a
the promo.
child. Like he looks like a child. That's the other thing is that for those few years there, especially before he grew a beard, like he had that baby face, like literally, and like every time he got beat up, it looked like a child was being beaten up.
For sure. And I think it's a 3.5, 3 3/4 kind of match, star match. It's just a finish, but again, because that post brawl was like a good 4 or 5 minutes, and it even led
Yes,
to a promo. But that's kind of the old school way they kind of did it, and you can just imagine Funk and Bruiser Brody having that kind of match. And I mean, I think they did and had that kind of finish anyway. But with a promo afterwards, and it was '93. So this was kind of like early stages of like, Eastern Championship Wrestling was I guess the frontier, the creation of the first year or whatever it was. Maybe '92 it was, but '93 they were like getting Paul Heyman there, and a big transition was happening especially in the Indies around this area too. It was transitioning into the ECW era.
I mean the independents definitely took off in the '90s. I think that's what's most important to think about is, at this point, all of the territories except Memphis are dead. Memphis is essentially a WWF developmental territory at this point. WCW is struggling in its own right. You don't have the AWA. World class is long gone at this point. It's really tough to think about. But you have this burgeoning independent scene, and Sabu is absolutely the one of the main like harbingers of the independent scene. And I would argue again that his influence in terms of introducing independent wrestling and making it famous, like this is where the influence truly comes in. And again, there was a scenario where Lightning Kid, I mean, WWF for so long was the land of the giants. If not for, the steroid testing and Vince McMahon almost going to jail because of drug distribution, like does Lightning Kid, does 1, 2, 3 Kid, Sean Waltman, does he get this opportunity? I mean, that's the crazy thing to me is does he get this opportunity? You don't know.
Yeah, I would think not. But again, it's kind of like interesting that we consider him a small guy, and he's like 6'1", maybe 6'2", I think.
Yes, I mean relative to
And
the again the
and
land of the
what's interesting too is that if you notice, he got even smaller, I think, in '94, '95. Like it looks like he lost weight, to be honest, because he's much more a little thicker in like his global wrestling days, and then in this footage here, he's like a little thicker. But then he starts losing like a lot of mass, and he gets more tone in '94. Like you can see it against that match in Owen Hart, where it's like
I
he's
mean
clearly lost like 20 pounds,
was
30 pounds.
very serious about steroid testing. Maybe he was on
Yeah,
something and
that's
then
that's
got
what I'm
off of
kind
it.
of that's what I'm kind of hinting at there. I don't want to hint too much, but I think that's what was going on because it's clearly like it was a size difference between '93 and '94 for 1, 2, 3 Kid. So
For sure. All right, let's talk about his match with Scorpio. I have a lot of respect for Too Cold Scorpio in the ring. Obviously, he can be very problematic outside of it. I just every time I watch him in ECW or even some of his Flash Funk matches, like it just I can't help but think if this guy comes along 10 years later, how much bigger of a star he is. Because I mean, I feel like Sabu has gotten a certain amount of notoriety, but it just feels like Scorpio has gotten even less, even though he's the one that has the WCW, the run in a little bit of a run in WCW, a little bit of a run in WWF, and then it's just like he wasn't really in like the new era indies. Like I don't think he ever made a PWG appearance. I think his Ring of Honor appearances were sporadic at best. Like I know he made some appearances in other independents, but he really wasn't a guy that was around nearly as much as even Sabu was. But this match, I think Sabu is much more wrestling as like a babyface, wrestling from behind. Scorpio kind of beats the crap out of him, wrestling as more of the heel. And in terms of like this style of match, like these two had really good chemistry. This was a 30-minute draw, but they didn't wrestle it as a 30-minute draw, and I think that really had an impact too. Like this, if when I think of the tropes of a 30 or 60-minute draw, this match really did not fall into any of them. Like it did not feel. They didn't start slow. They didn't like lull you into a sense of okay, this is going to be a draw. Like the ending of the match wasn't even like it was just Sabu like Scorpio like kicked out and then the bell rang, which I don't know, maybe there was a miscue or something, but I appreciated the fact that they did a draw and it wasn't like, oh, if this went one more second, the one guy or the other was the win.
Yeah, and what I liked about this match, particularly Sabu, is like selling like crazy. Because at one point, I think it's halfway through the match, like Scorpio kicks Sabu in the balls, but I think he did it on accident. Because it's one of those things where like Sabu just leaves the ring, like, oh shit, like something happened, and then it's like for a minute or two, he's just outside. And look, as a guy, that feeling when you get kicked in the balls, like it doesn't just go away after a few minutes. Like there's a lot of like lingering tension there. And it felt like every time Sabu did a move afterward, he was holding or at least like holding the part of the space above your balls. You know what I'm saying? Like it really looked like he got legitimately kicked so hard that it affected the match and it just kind of like made the match better. But it really looked like Sabu was like in just in desperation mode after that. Because even if he hits a leg drop, he's selling like he can't breathe. And I think he wasn't breathing properly because again, when you get kicked in the balls at the wrong time, dude, like even your breathing can be a little fucked up, and you can tell
Yep.
Sabu's like not the same after that kick, but it added to it. And every time he would try to go for a pin, it would be like a real struggle, which even adds more to it. Because if you believe in the idea in wrestling, sometimes
Right.
like it should look like a struggle, it adds to the realism. And I think that's what adds to this match. And the thing about this match is like they tried to do this match again later on in like other house shows, and I found one of them on the network and I played it and I was like, this is not nearly as good. And it was just like bad, like half as good. And they tried to do some of the similar stuff, but the timing wasn't right. Something about the ECW arena this night just had the right vibe with it, and they were willing and able to like hold that 30-minute time span, attention span, and they weren't booing, they weren't chanting like this is boring or whatever. Like everyone was on point, the crowd was on
Yeah.
point, and Scorpio is just a great heel. I think he's underrated as a heel, to be honest. Because if you watch his TV title run, just him as a heel, just pissing off the crowd and like, oh, you want me to see me do a flip, and then he just doesn't do a flip. He like gets off the top rope and like drops an elbow or something, which is really smart to
It's
do.
like I see a lot of not too much, but I think Ricochet. I mean, I don't know how much Ricochet is watching Scorpio's 1995-96 run, but it has some of the same feelings.
For sure. That's a similar comparison that I thought of too. And this whole TV title run that he has in ECW is very underrated, I think, because people think of like Malenko and Guerrero, and then of course RVD. But in between that was like, Scorpio pretty
Shane
much, and
Douglas
Shane
and
Douglas.
Scorpio, and I think Chris Jericho had it for a cup of coffee. Like, there's
Yeah, but
definitely
it was a lot of like
some pretty
pushing
notable
Scorpio in the
runs.
middle, and then he was reliable if like someone got injured in the main event, he'd be the guy that would wrestle twice on show to fill in for the main event kind of thing. So he was very reliable in that sense.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
this
mean,
match is really great.
from a financial standpoint, you get why Scorpio does leave and become Flash Funk, but can't help but think like, what if he had stayed in ECW? Like, what kind of a run would he have had if he had stayed around in 97, 98, 99? Like, getting a match with a main event Rob Van Dam, getting into the title picture, more matches with Shane Douglas. But yeah, good stuff all around. That is Sabu and Too Cold Scorpio again, kind of an underrated ECW match.
Yeah, it's
But
like a
now we're
four
gonna
star
fast
match
forward.
for me.
Yeah, it
Four stars
is
for me.
absolutely. Let's go 9 years later. Sabu deals with an illness. I guess he's on the brink of death, and then he kicks out at two, and then has one of the best runs of his career. 05, 06, when he does TNA and WWE. Like, this might be one of the better runs of his career, and it is represented in a barbed wire match with Abyss from Turning Point 2005. Just like it is a hardcore match, but it doesn't feel as extreme, pun not intended, as like the Terry Funk match, which both of those guys almost died literally in that. Like, I don't know if they did not use real barbed wire. It definitely captured some of the danger, but it didn't feel ridiculous. And this is a match where you have Sabu wrestling from behind. But this feels like a great tribute to him because he went over Abyss, who is kind of a TNA mainstay and somebody that's quite frankly pretty underrated in his own right. Getting having Sabu wrestle as the underdog, I think worked really well for this match using the boards. I know you wanted a table spot. I don't know. It feels like Sabu got away from just doing table spots at every match during this run, and I think that was a good thing. Like, it's not that he didn't do it. I think he just picked his spots better. And I think for a match like this, using a table when you have the board, yeah, good stuff. I really, really liked this match. I mean, it's hard to say a barbed wire match is ever fun, but this was really good.
I mean, we got to give credit to Don West. Rest in peace, man. I mean, he went from like being a TV shopping network guy and transitioned into this role as a color commentator. And he was able to adapt and he picks up on all the nuances and like techniques and counter techniques and like the idea of like, oh, this is going to be something that's not wrestling, folks. And he's actually telling the people like this is not what you expect. This is going to be a hardcore match. Don't expect wrestling. And he actually knows what he's talking about. And because of his like enthusiasm, it adds to the match. And then when crazy shit happens, he sells it like, "Oh my God, that was like almost as if it wasn't supposed to happen." He's like, "Oh my God," and then it just sells it like it's like a Joey Styles kind of call. And I think that, that kind of call for a Sabu match just fits perfectly. And, the thing with Sabu matches is like when they're really crazy at times, it's that element of unpredictability that adds to the match. So when Sabu does this spot where he's gonna like leg drop Abyss on the barbed wire, but Abyss moves and he just like lands leg first on the barbed wire. It's like, oh my God. And like not only is Don West freaking out on commentary as if that wasn't supposed to happen, like the crowd is freaking out. And like that's the kind of feeling that unfortunately that I got in his final barbed wire match in his last match because that's the unpredictability that a Sabu match can bring to the table. But he did multiple spots like this in the match, which is like crazy. Like I think that suplex spot was like, I don't know, man, that was maybe too gnarly. And for TNA to show that, like, credit to TNA for sticking to it because apparently they were not going to originally do the match because they got called out by the cable systems or something, and they had to work out a deal where they didn't tape the match live or like show the match live, and they taped it so they can get away with kind of showing it, so it's not part of the live pay-per-view broadcast or something like that. So credit to TNA for like sticking to their guns and actually going through with the match because I can easily picture
Really
Jared
good
just
stuff.
like kind
Yeah.
of yeah, like Jared, like, oh, forget it. We advertised it, but they're not going to allow it. Just forget it. We'll do it on TV or something. But they stuck to their guns and taped it ahead of time, and the crowd was really into it. And like there was no table spot, but I think the boards, were the counter to that, and they really worked out well for the finish. And Abyss, man, what can you say? Like people think he's like a Kane Light. That's fine, but he's still a great brawler, and he brings that to the
Uh,
table.
I
And
mean, I would argue that Abyss had a far better run just in terms of in the ring than Kane ever had. Like, I can count the number of Abyss matches I like, and it goes more than one hand. The number of Kane matches I've actually liked, I could probably keep on one hand. It's
yeah,
pretty.
I get what you're saying because those TNA matches back in the day when I was watching it, 04, 05, 06, especially those matches with AJ were really good. And he just adapts really well with the smaller guys, and he's willing to like move with them and
Yes,
stuff. So he's really underrated in that sense. Um, yeah, I think this match in particular, it's kind of one of Abyss's what highlights, I guess, because like I can't think of a match where like he
for
bled this much
sure.
or risked any like
I
life and
mean,
limb kind of
he
thing.
bled a lot. He went through tacks a lot. He had a match with AJ Styles where they were in the cage with thumbtacks that was pretty brutal. Certainly, this being barbed wire, also pretty brutal. I am just sad that we never got to see Abyss versus Brian Danielson in Ring of Honor. That was apparently supposed to happen in '06. Yeah, I'm really sad we never got that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense timeline wise because he was part of that the Generation Next Embassy match for some
He was
reason.
part of
I forgot why.
the
I guess he was
embassy
a
won a
hired gun.
the embassy
Yeah, I
won a
guess he
six
was.
man tournament. Everybody got Uh, Basically, you win that tournament, you get your title shot of your choice. Jimmy Rave and Alex Shelley both got theirs. Abyss, I think it might have been the unscripted two situation, but I guess they were on the books and then it never happened, probably because Abyss wasn't going to be able to lose. I'm sure that played a role in it as
Yeah, that
well.
was
So it's just
that's one of
unfortunate
those
that we
eras of
never
yeah,
got we never got Abyss
2006
versus Brian Danielson in Ring of Honor. That would have been pretty fantastic, I would imagine.
for sure. So this is I guess it's a 3.5 for me just because
Yeah,
it
I
feels kind of
agree.
short, but it kind of like ends at the right moment, and the crowd
I
was
would
hyped
actually
for it. So
say I think this is the kind of match I would rather see go too short than too long. Because I think when you get a violent
for
match that goes
sure,
too long,
for
it just
sure.
feels very excessive.
And then to a lumberjack match that I completely forgot existed.
Just a baffling match in so many ways. I mean, I don't know. Like to me, 2002 through about 2007, it's pretty out there. WWE went to some weird places, like the NWO. The unfortunate passing of Eddie Guerrero. The rise of John Cena, Kurt Angle, and all of his issues. Randy Orton and his issues. Cena, Batista getting hurt at the exact wrong time. Just a lot of really weird stuff. And this ECW thing is just you can throw that onto the pile. I mean, I just looked at these lumberjacks and I'm like, what is happening? Val Venus in 2006 is there. You've got Trevor Murdoch. I mean, just a profoundly baffling situation. Like you have the Sandman interacting with WWE talent. You got Tommy Dreamer out there. Just it is so baffling, man. And like the match is fine. Again, Vince McMahon was never going to allow Sabu to even come close to going over John Cena. So I think it has its limitations. Um, Again, I think Cena is somebody who is capable of having a good match with just about everybody, especially at this stage. Like I think he's somebody that you can carry to a really good match. And I mean, part of the restriction I think is the lumberjacks. Part of like the heel babyface dynamics are weird because Rob Van Dam is clearly a face. ECW are clearly the heels in this situation, but John Cena was a heel a month ago. Like just really strange stuff. And Jerry Lawler hating ECW just like he did in 1997. I read a really interesting observation, Brian. I want to know if you agree with this. That in terms of being a wrestler, Jerry Lawler is one of the most insightful and intelligent in the ring workers of all time. And when you listen to his commentary, none of that ever comes across. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because the character of Jerry Lawler in WWE is far more obnoxious than the character of the
I mean, he's a
King. And
cartoon.
yeah, it's like a cartoon version of what you perceive as like a hick version of the King from Memphis kind of thing, as opposed to knowing the actual King character from Memphis kind of thing. That's kind of my interpretation of it, because like when King's on commentary, he's not really focusing on moves and stuff. He's focusing on like the storyline and the women in bikinis and all that kind of thing. And it's just like
And making
it's
stupid jokes.
totally you're making stupid jokes, and you wouldn't tell from his commentary that he was this like legendary wrestler. And I guess that's kind of the dichotomy or the gimmick of it all. And maybe he just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be that kind of insightful, which is
It
fine.
sucks,
Like
though. I
you
really
don't
feel
have
like we
to,
lost
but
out. I really feel like we lost out on something because I feel like if Jerry Lawler had taken himself more seriously, I think his legacy would be very different. Because I go back to these shows and I'm like, Lawler is a borderline unlistenable on these shows, especially at this stage, especially when you get past the Attitude Era and you're in the wilderness of these times. It's bad. It's really bad.
I mean, I would give him the chemistry stuff with Jim Ross from about 97 to 2002, 2003. I'll give him that. After that, it's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
little getting too much.
he's better, I would say, because there's so much more to play off of, and Jim Ross is on absolute fire with Steve Austin and whatnot, so that certainly makes up for it. I mean, like I said, I think that this match, in terms of like the wrestling, is generally fine. I don't think that Sabu comes off looking great, but I mean, the purpose of this match is more about making Cena like look extreme than anything else.
Which is kind of a weird thing how they did it because he's aligned with a bunch of heels, right? And not even that, they're like lower card heels. And he's supposed to be cheered. And yet the guys from
Like I said,
EC
it's really weird.
yeah, and the guys from ECW, on the other hand, are like legends from like the entire timeline of ECW. It's like you get a 95 reference here, a 97 reference here. It's like, and we got a Just Incredible ride, and that's like the end of ECW. So you get all these different eras of ECW covered. So it's very strange, but I think they just wanted to push Cena because he didn't have the title. I guess he just lost the titles, but they wanted to keep him strong. And Sabu is a guy that can kind of like come in and be like a menacing kind of heel. But the problem is that the crowd loves him too much because he does cool shit. So that's kind of what happened. And Sabu does cool shit in this match. At one point, Cena throws him, does it like an FU through a table, and my goodness, the table, it was like the edge of the table, and oh my God, that was
Yeah,
brutal.
it did not look good.
Oof.
I mean,
It was,
I can't even
yeah.
imagine what Sabu's lower back had to look like. It was probably really bad.
Because I don't even think it cleared the leg. I think it just broke at the end, which is even worse because it leads to like
I mean,
nearly like having a
that is the
steak.
worst.
It
I
was like
mean,
a steak sticking out. It was
yeah,
bad. Oh
what
man.
you want
But
is you want to go through the center of the table and have that break because your weight will carry you through and like you're not going to get hurt that bad. But when you go through the edge of the table, like all bets are off because different things are coming up and it hits the small of your back and it's pretty bad, pretty bad.
yeah, I've seen one with Scott Steiner, and that was pretty bad. I think it was like a clash where I think Kevin Sullivan just threw him over the top, not caring, and his back hit the table, and it just sliced his back. So it made me think of that. But in terms of like this match overall, it's a fun 10-minute match. Because if you kind of look back at this card, I think this was the card where they had DX reunite, as I
Yeah,
recall.
that was the main event.
So that
Was
was the focus
DX,
of it.
the main
Yeah.
event of this show was DX versus the Spirit Squad.
I can't even tell you the names of the Spear Squad other than Dolph Ziggler, to be honest. So,
And that was not
uh,
his Spirit Squad name.
oh, great. Yeah, this is around the time where I kind of started switching out and kind of focusing for the next couple months on
Hard to
TNA,
blame you.
and then kind of drifting out and discovering like I'll just watch Ring of Honor and found PWG, and that was my college years. So, the end of the beginning of this ECW run is where I kind of transitioned, and then I came back years later.
Pretty fitting.
But
Pretty
but
fitting.
uh but this match overall I think is just kind of like a weird time capsule kind of thing in terms of like what the fuck is going on with all these different wrestlers coming in.
It is a baffling period
And
of
it
time.
also shows you it's like they got all this talent that's still lingering from the the Monday Night Wars, so to speak, that are just kind of like these
And
leftover
not the guys that
casualties.
actually drew money. Like Steve Austin and The Rock are pretty much long gone at this point, and you're stuck
Yeah.
with the leftovers.
I mean, thank God DVD sales were so good, I guess, because of those ECW DVDs. This is the reason that everything kind of happened. So,
That's
and I
why
was part of the
ECW came back.
I was part of the problem, I guess, because I bought those DVDs. But I mean,
I mean,
you
those
know,
DVDs sold. I mean, people will never. I mean, we had it so what? We had it so good, and we had to ruin it with streaming. That's all I can say.
yeah. I mean, I think they are on the network, folks, those DVDs, but it's not the same because you're not going to get the same extras. You'll get the DVD documentary, but not like the way it was like set up in the
The
DVD originally.
sound, the
So,
smell, you're missing out on a lot.
hashtag physical media, hashtag physical media.
All right, so that this is our YouTube exclusive. We will be back again. Make sure to check the YouTube for our regular episodes as we will be discussing Adam Sandler starting next week. Make sure to enjoy Ben Phillips and I. We did our episode on Pixar, the top 10 Pixar movies, and we discussed some of the Pixar news that has come out pretty recently. So for Brian, I'm Jerome. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you again later.